Alright, I don't know where else to put this, but I need to get this out because I'm still shaken. This isn't some spooky internet horror story. This is real. It happened to me, and I have the footage to prove it. I moved into my current apartment about 6 months ago. It's a decent one-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood in Chicago. Not fancy, but it's got charm, exposed brick walls, old wooden floors that creak just enough to remind you the place has history. The rent's affordable, which is rare in the city, and my landlord, Mrs. Callahan, is this sweet old lady who bakes cookies for tenants like we're all her grandkids. The bedroom is the biggest draw. It has these massive bay windows that let in a ton of natural light during the day, making the whole space feel warm and safe. There's also a built-in closet, a heavy wooden thing with a single sliding door. The first time I saw it, I thought it was kind of cool, retro even. The kind of closet you'd see in an old 50s house. But over the past few months, that closet has become something else entirely. Something I don't even have the right words for. It started with little things. At first, I'd wake up in the morning and notice the closet door was cracked open. Just an inch or two. Not much, but enough for me to remember that I always shut it before going to bed. I didn't think much of it. Maybe I hadn't closed it all the way. Maybe there was a draft. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then it kept happening. Every single night. No matter how carefully I slid that door shut, no matter how hard I pressed it into place, I'd wake up and find it open. Sometimes just a sliver. Sometimes wide enough that I could see my clothes hanging inside, their dark shapes swaying slightly, like they'd just been disturbed. I tried blaming my own forgetfulness. Maybe I wasn't paying attention when I closed it. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe maybe I was losing my mind. But then last week, something happened that I can't explain away. I woke up in the middle of the night to a faint creaking sound. Not loud, but just enough to drag me out of sleep. I lay there for a second, my heart pounding as I listened. And then slowly I turned my head toward the closet. The door was moving. Not fast. Not jerking. Just sliding. Inch by inch. It was so slow that for a second I thought my tired brain was playing tricks on me. Maybe my eyes were adjusting to the dark. Maybe I was dreaming. But then it stopped. Opened just enough for me to see the sliver of blackness inside. I sat up so fast that my sheets tangled around my legs. My breath was coming in short, panicked gasps, and my entire body was prickling with fear. My first thought was someone is in there. Someone had broken in. Someone was hiding in my closet. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. The second the beam hit the closet, I expected to see a figure. Some shadowy shape frozen in the act of pushing the door open. But there was nothing. Just my clothes. The same way they always were. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in bed, staring at that closet, waiting for it to move again. But it didn't. The next morning, I decided to do something I should have done a long time ago. I recorded it. That night, I set my phone up on my dresser, camera pointed straight at the closet door. I made sure the door was shut all the way. I even shoved a chair against it, just in case. And then I went to sleep. I didn't wake up in the middle of the night. No noises. No creaks. Just a deep, dreamless sleep that felt almost unnatural. When I woke up, the first thing I did was check the closet. The chair was still against the door. The door itself looked closed. For a second, I actually felt stupid. Like I'd let my paranoia get the best of me. And then I checked the video. I wish I hadn't. I hesitated before hitting play. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me already knew that whatever was on that recording was going to change everything. But I had to see it. The video started normal enough. Just my dimly lit bedroom, the closet door shut tight, the chair wedged against it. I skipped ahead, watching myself climb into bed, shifting under the covers. The room stayed still for a while, just the soft rise and fall of my breathing, the faint glow of the city filtering through the windows. Then around 3:12 a.m., something changed. The closet door moved. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. The kind of movement you wouldn't notice unless you were looking directly at it. But the video didn't lie. Inch by inch, the door was sliding open. The chair was still pressed against it. It didn't fall over. It didn't even budge. It was like the door was moving through it. I paused the video. My breath was coming fast, my fingers cold and slick with sweat. My brain was screaming at me to shut the laptop, to stop watching. But I pressed play again. At 3:15 a.m., the door was open just enough to reveal a sliver of darkness. And that's when I saw it. A hand. Not a full hand. Just the tips of fingers, long, pale, barely visible against the blackness of the closet interior. They weren't reaching out. They were just there, resting against the edge of the door, motionless, as if whatever was inside had been waiting for this exact moment. I felt a sharp, sickening jolt of nausea. I paused the video again, backed it up, played it frame by frame. Those fingers were not there when the door started moving. They appeared out of nowhere. I slammed my laptop shut so hard it nearly slid off the desk. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I turned around, my eyes immediately snapping to the closet. It was shut. Completely. Just like I'd left it. The chair was still against it. Everything looked normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was staring at me from the other side of that door. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to be out. I walked, barefoot, in my pajamas, through the cold, quiet streets of my neighborhood. The city felt different, like I'd stepped into another version of it where everything was slightly off. Too quiet. Too still. I ended up at a 24-hour diner a few blocks from my place. The kind of place that always smells like burnt coffee and fried eggs, where tired servers refill your cup without asking. I slid into a booth in the corner, my back pressed against the vinyl seat, my hands gripping the table like I needed something solid to hold onto. A waitress came over. Middle-aged, kind eyes, name tag that said Lisa. "You okay, hon?" I opened my mouth to say yeah, I'm fine, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, I asked, have you ever had something weird happen in your apartment? Like, something you couldn't explain? Lisa gave me a long, knowing look. "Honey," she said, pouring me a cup of coffee, "you wouldn't believe the shit people tell me in this place." I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too tight. I took a sip of coffee instead, letting the heat ground me. Lisa hesitated for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "Where do you live?" I told her. Her face changed. Not in an obvious way. Just a flicker, something unreadable in her expression. "That building's old," she said after a pause. "Been around a long time." I waited for her to say more, but she just straightened up, tapping the edge of my table with her nails. "You want anything to eat?" I shook my head. "All right. You let me know if you need anything." She walked away, but I could feel her eyes on me from behind the counter. Something about that unsettled me more than the video itself. I sat there for another hour, watching people come and go, listening to the low hum of conversations and the clatter of plates. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look at the time. I just sat. Eventually, I forced myself to go back home. The apartment felt wrong when I stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy, like I'd walked into a room where someone had been standing just moments before. I checked the closet immediately. The chair was still there. The door was still closed. Nothing had changed. But I didn't sleep that night. Because now I knew I wasn't imagining things. Something was in there. And it was watching me. I barely slept the night before, but exhaustion eventually forced me to crash. It wasn't restful. It wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of sleep where your brain never fully shuts off, where you're stuck in this half-conscious fog, knowing something is wrong but too drained to do anything about it. I jolted awake at 3:47 a.m. No sound woke me. No creak. No whisper. Just a sudden, suffocating awareness, like my body had sensed something before my mind could process it. The room was still. The air was thick, unmoving. I could hear my own breathing, the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. And then I realized what was wrong. I was facing the closet. I always sleep facing the wall. Always. I don't even turn in my sleep. I've been like that since I was a kid. I need the feeling of something solid behind me. But now I was staring directly at the closet. My body had been turned. My blankets were pulled low, barely covering me. My right arm limp over the side of the bed, my fingers grazing the floor. And the closet door? Wide. Open. Not cracked. Not slightly ajar. Wide. Open. The darkness inside was so complete it looked unnatural, like a hole cut out of reality itself. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to convince myself that I had done this. That I had gotten up in my sleep, turned myself, pulled the door open, and then laid back down. But then I noticed something else. My bedroom door was open too. Not all the way. Just enough to see the dark hallway beyond. And I always lock my bedroom door. I sat up slowly, my entire body rigid with terror. My skin was damp with sweat, my breathing shallow. I reached for my phone, barely able to keep my hand steady as I turned on the flashlight. The moment the light hit the inside of the closet, my stomach dropped. The clothes were wrong. I don't know how to explain it. They were mine, the same shirts, the same jackets, the same neatly arranged rows of shoes at the bottom. But they looked off. Like they weren't real. Like someone had tried to copy my closet but got the details slightly wrong. One of my jackets was inside out. A pair of shoes I hadn't worn in months was in the wrong spot. My winter coat, which had been hanging in the back, was now in the front. And then there was the worst part. The smell. It hit me so hard I nearly gagged. A sharp, sour, rotting stench like meat left out in the sun for too long. It seeped into the air, into my lungs, clinging to my skin. Something had been in there. I shot out of bed, my heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't think, I just grabbed the closet door and slammed it shut, shoving the chair back against it so hard it scraped the floor. I was shaking so violently I could barely stand. I turned to face the rest of my apartment. The bedroom door was still slightly open. The hallway was nothing but a stretch of darkness leading to the living room. I stood there listening, straining to hear something, anything. And then from the hallway I heard it. A breath. Long, slow. What? Like someone inhaling through parted lips. I felt my entire body go cold. I wasn't alone. I wasn't fucking alone. I grabbed my phone, forcing my trembling fingers to dial 911. The ringing felt like it lasted a lifetime. 911, what's your emergency? My voice came out in a broken whisper. There's someone in my apartment. The dispatcher's voice was calm, but I could hear the urgency in her tone. Are you in a safe location? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say I was fine. But then from the hallway I heard something worse than breathing. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. The dispatcher was still talking, but I couldn't focus. I backed up until I hit the far wall, my free hand gripping the nightstand for support. The footsteps stopped. Right outside my bedroom door. And then in the silence I heard something that froze me to my core. A voice. Low. Whispering. Right outside my door. It didn't say words. It was just the sounds. Garbled, wet, wrong. Like someone trying to speak but not knowing how. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. And then the bedroom door started to open. I didn't think. I just ran. I tore through the room, past the opening door, straight into the dark hallway. I could feel something reaching for me, brushing against my arm, my back, my hair. I sprinted for the front door, slamming into it so hard my shoulder popped. My hands fumbled with the lock. It wouldn't turn. It wouldn't fucking turn. Behind me, the whispering grew louder. I twisted the lock with everything I had, my knuckles white. Finally it gave, and I yanked the door open, stumbling into the cold hallway outside. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I ran. I didn't stop running until I was outside, standing in the middle of the street, gasping for air. The city was still alive around me, cars passing, people laughing in bars, life going on like nothing had happened. But in my apartment something had. Something was still in there. I called the police again, barely able to get the words out. They arrived in less than 5 minutes. 4 officers. Flashlights. Hands on their guns as they stepped inside my apartment. They were inside for 7 minutes. And when they came out, one of them, Officer Reynolds, according to his badge, gave me a look I will never forget. He pulled me aside. We checked everywhere, he said, voice careful. No sign of forced entry. No one inside. I felt my stomach churn. That's not possible. Reynolds hesitated. We found your bedroom closet open. But nothing else. That was it. That was all they had to say. I begged them to check again. To really look. But they didn't find anything. And after a while they left. I didn't go back inside that night. I couldn't. I booked a cheap motel, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my phone, my mind racing. I knew what I heard. I knew what I saw. And I knew. Whatever was in my apartment wasn't human. I didn't go back the next day. Or the day after. I told myself I needed time. That I had to think. That maybe I was losing it. Lack of sleep. Stress. An overactive imagination fueled by too many late-night horror stories. But deep down I knew. Something was in that apartment. And it was waiting for me to come back. For 2 nights I stayed at that cheap motel, barely eating, barely sleeping. The wallpaper was peeling, the carpet smelled like mildew, and the guy in the room next to mine had the kind of cough that made me think he'd die in there. But I felt safer than I ever had in my own home. On the 3rd day, I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. I needed to go back. Not to stay. Just to grab my stuff, get the hell out, and never look back. I arrived around noon, hoping daylight would make everything feel less wrong. It didn't. The moment I stepped into the apartment, the air felt heavy, thick, like I was walking into a place that had been sealed shut for years. Everything looked exactly how I had left it. The chair was still wedged under the closet door. My blankets were tangled on the bed. My keys were still on the counter. But something felt off. I took slow, careful steps inside, my skin crawling with that terrible, primal sensation of being watched. I forced myself toward the bedroom, not looking at the closet, not even glancing at it. I grabbed a duffel bag and started stuffing clothes inside, my hands moving fast. I wasn't thinking about what I was taking, I just needed to go. I grabbed my laptop, my charger, my wallet. And then I heard it. A click. Soft. Quiet. Like a door unlocking. I froze. My eyes darted to the closet. The chair was still against the door. But the door itself was open. Not all the way. Just an inch. Just enough to see inside. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I wasn't crazy. I locked that door. I had shoved that chair so tight against it, there was no way it could have moved. Unless something was moving it from the inside. I took a step back, my body screaming at me to run. And then my phone rang. I nearly screamed. The sound shattered the silence, my heart slamming against my ribs. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I glanced at the screen. No caller ID. I didn't want to answer. Every nerve in my body told me not to. But I did. I put the phone to my ear, forcing my voice to work. Hello. For a second, nothing. Just static. A faint, crackling hiss like someone breathing too close to the receiver. Then, why did you leave? I dropped the phone. The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was wrong. Like someone mimicking human speech without knowing how to do it properly. Like a recording played backward. The words twisted and crackled through the speaker, stretching and warping. I took a step toward the door. Then another. I needed to get out. Now. I bent down to grab my phone, my fingers brushing against it. And then I saw it. In the reflection of the phone screen. Something behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Nothing. But the closet door was wider now. I didn't think. I grabbed my bag and bolted for the door. I had barely made it into the hallway when I heard the closet door slam open. Not creak. Not slide. Slam. Hard enough to rattle the walls. I ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air, my body trembling so hard I thought my knees would give out. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking, trying to lock the door behind me. And then I heard something else. From inside my apartment. Not footsteps. Not whispering. Not breathing. Laughter. Low. Wrong. Right up against the door. And then in the silence that followed, I heard it knock. Once. Twice. 3 times. I backed away. Slowly. Then I turned and ran. I never went back. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner, gripping a lukewarm cup of coffee like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. The neon lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly, making the world feel even more unstable than it already was. I knew I couldn't stay in my car forever. I needed a place to stay. Someone to crash with. So I did something I never do. I called Matt. Matt was an old friend, one of those people who drift in and out of your life, always around but never close. We weren't tight, but we'd grab drinks every now and then. And most importantly, Matt had a couch. I called him at 3:14 a.m., half expecting him to ignore it. But he picked up. Dude. His voice was groggy, confused. You good? I swallowed. My throat was dry. Yeah. No. Not really. A pause. What happened? I almost didn't tell him. It sounded insane. But my brain was fraying at the edges and I needed to say it out loud. So I told him everything. Not just about the closet, about the noises, the wrongness of the apartment, the phone call. The laughter. The fucking knock. When I finished, there was silence. Then Matt exhaled slow and deep. Yeah, okay. You can crash here. I could have cried. 15 minutes later, I was at his place. His apartment was small, cluttered, normal. A half-eaten pizza sat on the counter. His PlayStation menu hummed on the TV. Nothing felt off. It was the first time in days I had felt remotely safe. I crashed on his couch, barely getting out of my shoes before exhaustion slammed into me. My body was shutting down. For the first time in 3 days, I slept. I woke up at 4:12 a.m. Not because of a noise. Not because of a nightmare. Because I was cold. Matt had cranked up the heat before we went to bed, but the air in the apartment was frigid. I blinked groggy, my breath misting in front of me. And then I saw it. The closet. Matt's apartment had a small hallway leading to his bedroom. At the end of it was a closet. The door was cracked open, just enough to see the darkness inside. I sat up, my pulse pounding in my skull. Something was wrong. I didn't remember the closet being open before. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was still half dreaming. But then, the door moved. Just an inch. A slow creaking shift, like something was pressing against it from the inside. I froze. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I wasn't near that closet. But somehow, someway, it had followed me. A soft sound drifted from the hallway. A whisper. Low. Crooked. Not human. I swallowed bile. My body was screaming at me to run. I turned toward Matt's room, desperate to wake him up. But then the closet door swung open. Not fast. Not sudden. Slow. Deliberate. And I swear to God, I saw something standing inside. A shape. Tall. Wrong. Not fully formed. Not solid. Like something that didn't quite understand how to look human. I shot up. I ran straight to Matt's door, yanking it open so hard it slammed against the wall. Matt! Wake the fuck up. He jolted awake instantly, eyes wide. What the? I pointed toward the hallway, my whole body shaking. The closet, I gasped. Something's in the closet. Matt's brows furrowed, still half asleep. Dude, what a thud. A heavy, sickening thud echoed from the hallway. Matt's eyes snapped toward the door. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Matt slowly climbed out of bed, grabbing the bat he kept near his nightstand. I stayed behind him as he crept toward the hallway. He peeked out. Then he exhaled sharply. Dude, there's nothing. And then something ran past us. A blur. A shadow. Fast. Wrong. Too big. I didn't see details. Just movement. Just a shape that should not have been able to fit inside that closet. Matt jumped back, slamming the bedroom door shut. I locked it. Twice. We stood there, breathing hard, staring at the door. Silence. Then, knock. Not on the bedroom door. On the closet. A slow, deliberate 3 knocks. Just like before. And then in the silence that followed, the laughter. Low. Crooked. Right outside the door. Matt turned to me, his face pale as death. What the fuck did you bring into my apartment? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was this. It wasn't just my closet anymore. It could follow me. And it wasn't going to stop. I don't remember falling asleep. But at some point I must have. Because I woke up to silence. A deep, wrong silence. Matt was still beside me, slumped against the bedroom wall, his back clutched in his lap. His face was pale, his breath slow. The air was still freezing. For a second I thought maybe it was over. Maybe whatever the fuck this was had decided to leave. Then I heard it. The creak. The slow drawn-out creak of the closet door opening. Not in the hallway. In the bedroom. I snapped my head to the side. The closet across from Matt's bed, the one that had been shut the entire night, was opening. I felt my entire body lock up. No. No, no, no. It wasn't possible. We had been here the whole time. We would have heard it move. But the door. It was opening inch by inch. Matt stirred. His eyes flickered open, heavy with exhaustion. What's he? And then he saw it too. The closet door yawning wide. The air inside was wrong. Like the darkness wasn't just darkness. Like it had depth. Matt shot up so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. What the fuck, man? His voice was shaking. I couldn't speak. I just stared. There was something inside. Not a person. Not an animal. Something tall. Something lean. Its shape was all wrong. Its proportions didn't make sense, like someone had stretched a human shadow into something unnatural. And its face? It didn't have one. Just a void where features should be. A space that seemed to pull at the air around it, distorting it. It was just standing there. Watching. Matt grabbed my arm, yanking me back toward the door. And that's when it moved. Fast. Too fast. A blur of motion, not running, but shifting. Like it was flickering between spaces. Matt wrenched the door open, dragging me into the hallway. But as soon as we stepped out, the closet in the hallway slammed open. Something shot out. A hand. Long wrong. Gripping Matt's wrist. He screamed. I grabbed him, pulling as hard as I could. The thing lurched forward, its body twisting out of the closet like a marionette being pulled by invisible strings. Its movements were jagged, broken. Matt punched it. He swung the bat with everything he had. A crack. The sound echoed through the apartment. The thing staggered. Its grip loosened for a fraction of a second. And we ran. We tore down the hallway, past the kitchen, straight out the front door. Matt didn't even lock it behind us. We just ran. Down the stairs. Through the parking lot. Into his car. We didn't speak. We didn't look back. He just started the engine and floored it. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't care. All I knew was the closet had followed me here. It wasn't staying in my apartment. It wasn't staying in Matt's. It could be anywhere. And no matter where I ran, it would always find me. We didn't stop driving. Not for gas. Not for food. Not for anything. We didn't even have a plan, just the instinct to get away. But deep down I knew it wouldn't matter. Because the closet wasn't just a closet anymore. It wasn't tied to a place. It was tied to me. It was just after 5 a.m. when Matt finally pulled into a gas station off the highway. The place was deserted, the only sign of life aboard, cashier scrolling through his phone inside. Matt killed the engine and turned to me. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. Because there was nothing to say. I could still feel it. That cold, creeping wrongness curling around my spine. It was close. I knew it. Matt ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "Okay, dude. You need to tell me everything. When did this start?" I opened my mouth. Paused. Because suddenly I wasn't sure anymore. The closet had always been in my apartment, but I'd never really noticed it until a few nights ago. What if it had been there longer? What if it had been watching me before I ever realized it was there? The thought made my stomach turn. Matt grabbed my shoulder, snapping me out of it. "Look at me. We're gonna figure this out." We just... Thud. We both froze. The sound came from the back of the car. A heavy wet thud. Like something had just dropped into the trunk. Matt's face went pale. Slowly he turned to look through the rear windshield. I followed his gaze. And my blood turned to ice. The trunk was open. Just a crack. Like something had forced its way inside. Matt didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then very slowly he reached for the door handle. "We need to." The trunk slammed shut. The whole car shook. And then... knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from the inside of the trunk. I felt my body lock up. The gas station lights flickered. The air went cold. And then... the laughter. Low. Crooked. Coming from the trunk. Matt didn't wait. He lunged for the keys, shoving them into the ignition. The car wouldn't start. He tried again. Nothing. And then out of the corner of my eye, the gas station's closet door creaked open. The cashier inside didn't even notice. Didn't react. Like he couldn't see what was happening. But I did. I saw it. A shadow shifting in the doorway. A long thin hand curling around the frame. It was inside the gas station. And it was inside the trunk. And it was inside me. The air turned heavy. A pressure I couldn't describe, like the entire world was tilting sideways. And then... a whisper. Not out loud. Not in the car. Inside my head. "You can't run." I snapped. I threw the door open and stumbled out. Matt yelled after me, but I didn't stop. I ran. Straight into the gas station, straight toward the closet door, straight toward the thing inside. The cashier barely looked up. And before I could stop myself, I yanked the door open. Darkness. Not normal darkness, absolute void. Like I had just ripped a hole in the world. And then... something grabbed me. Not physically. But I felt it pull. A force dragging at my chest, my thoughts, my very mind. Like it was trying to take me inside. I fought it. I don't know how. But I fought. I reached out, grabbing the edges of the doorframe. It burned. The wood was freezing cold, searing against my skin like dry ice. But I held on. I didn't let go. And then... Matt was there. He grabbed me, yanking me backward. For a second, I thought he was pulling me to safety. But then I saw his face. His eyes. And I knew. It wasn't Matt anymore. It had him. His mouth curled into a slow, unnatural grin. "Let go," he whispered. I didn't. I gritted my teeth, every muscle in my body screaming, and I kicked the closet door shut. The second it closed, everything snapped back. The pressure vanished. The gas station was normal again. The lights stopped flickering. The air was warm. And Matty. Matt was lying on the floor, gasping for breath. He looked up at me, eyes wild. What the fuck just happened? I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. All I knew was I had closed the door, but I hadn't locked it. Epilogue. I don't go near closets anymore. Not mine. Not Matt's. Not in public, not in private. I don't trust them, because I know that one day when I least expect it, it'll open again. And this time, I might not be able to close it. The end.